All right, so we are back. These two students have a really cool podcast, which is all about positivity, about lifestyle, about girls' opinions, about what they go through in middle school. Sometimes it's just them. Sometimes they have a guest, and they dive into a topic. And sometimes within this conversation, they don't know necessarily where it's going to go, but they always try to give positive support, positive ideas, give some advice for students their age. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to these guys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Girls Got This. I'm Zara, and with me as always is Ava.
Hi.
Each week, we'll lead you through middle school and give you advice on how to thrive as a teenage girl. This is episode 2 for December 21st, 2023.
Last week we spoke a bit about schoolwork and friendships, but today we wanted to bring a special guest, Miss Stein.
Hello, everybody.
She is one of our favorite teachers for advice, and we are hoping she could share some of that knowledge with you guys.
Okay, so Miss Stein, tell us a little bit about yourself before I get started.
Of course. Well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me, Zara and Ava. I'm 27 years old. I grew up in Smithtown, New York. So that is in Suffolk County. Right now we are in Nassau County. So I do a little bit of traveling to work every day, but it's worth it because I love the school district. I've been a substitute teacher at Herricks for a little over a year now, and I'm planning on becoming either an English teacher or a special education teacher. Some of my hobbies are traveling, playing with my animals. I have 2 cats and a dog, and I love shopping, going on Pinterest, and doing yoga.
Today, we are going to get another opinion on almost all topics and follow along with this episode to find out what you need. So even though we covered these topics in a previous episode, we wanted a second perspective. What would you say about making friends? Like, what are some tips, like the basics?
I would say the most important concept in relation to making friends is that you want to be friends with people that you can trust and vice versa. So a lot lately, I hear a lot of talk about energy, and you can kind of feel a person's energy when they're being, either if they're being distrustful or if they're being closed off for some kind of reason, or maybe if they're just acting in a way that you don't think is honest to them. So that's kind of an energy you can feel, and that's at any age. I think it's really prominent when you're young. So in middle school especially, I think that you guys are able to feel a lot of these emotions that as adults we are used to compartmentalizing. So in terms of making friends, even if you just have a few, quality over quantity, always. Yeah, so I would definitely say that in my life, there are a few people that I can really trust with a lot of things, and I'm okay with that because I know how close they are to me, and that's really what's important.
Yeah. I don't even think we mentioned that in our last episode, like energy, like that is such a big concept, and like trust, like that really, like you said, gives off the energy. Yeah.
Think about it with your family. You know, it starts there. Those are the people who you're around constantly during your upbringing and when you're growing up, and you can go off of your family's energy. Every family has a different, they have different things that are normal to them and not normal, and after that, that's when you learn how to build relationships with other people. So that's when friends and relationships start coming into the picture. But that concept of energy always remains there.
Yes, and like quality over quantity,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have 2 main friends, but I know
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I honestly, if I could tell you when I was saying that, I had one person pop into my brain, and that's my best friend, Julia. Shout out to her. She lives in Chicago. I only see her about once a year, but she is my best friend in the world. We knew each other in 6th grade. Her locker was above mine, but we weren't friends because I think in our friend group, some of us liked the same boy, and she always drops her things on her locker on top of my head on accident. Yeah, but then come to find she's getting engaged, and I'm going wedding dress shopping with her this weekend. She's my best friend in the world. I spend every Thanksgiving at her house with her family, even when she's not there. When she's with her fiance in Georgia or Chicago or wherever they
That's
are.
amazing.
So that's how close friendships can grow.
Wow. That was a great piece of advice. That's like
Thank you, Zara.
real life example.
Yes, it is.
Okay, what do you think's the best way to manage schoolwork?
I think in terms of managing your schoolwork, I do appreciate having an agenda. And even as you get older, like I have this little blackboard in my room that I kind of just write down the things that I need to do for the week, and I'll check them off as I go along. That way I don't forget, oh, I had to cancel this appointment, or oh, I had this due for this class, and things like that. So I would say writing things down and kind of checking them off as you go along, because then you won't get overwhelmed, you won't get behind on any assignments, and you'll feel like very with it when you're at school. You won't be stressed out all over the place.
That's kind of like what we mentioned before, like don't procrastinate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I procrastinated a lot in my life, and all it did to me was stress me out and drive my mother crazy. So, and as an adult, it's difficult to get out of that habit of procrastination. But at the age I'm at now, I've been conscious of it. So I would say at your age, it's important to begin not developing that habit so that you can just get organized right away. And then those habits will stay with you through high school, college, and so forth. And just in regular life, you need an agenda. Trust me. You can even the little thing on your phone, as I set reminders all the time. We have these iPhones. I just tell it, like, reminds me Thursday at noon to cancel my doctor's appointment on December 20th or whatever. That was a real life example, by the way.
Yeah. That's a good way to keep track of everything, get everything done, right?
Yes.
It can apply to school.
Absolutely. And use the technology that you have that's at your fingertips if you're able to, because it can do good. And if you do have smartwatches or iPhones and things, there's so much more to them than social media and stuff like that. Like you can use, Apple has a lot of tools that you can use at your age to help you guys succeed.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about buying clothes to fit in? Even if, you just think you don't fit in and you just need clothes is what will make you cooler.
So you mean in terms of like matching styles and things like that? Well, this is something I see a lot and something I'm guilty of myself. I think that it's definitely normal to want to do that because in middle school, especially, there's a lot of pressure to fit in, right? Everyone likes to wear the same thing. If you stand out a little bit, people notice and they might have something to say about it. Whether or not that's going to be good or bad, usually for whatever reason, people lean towards the negative. If someone stands out, it makes them different. Why are they different? Why do they want to do something different? And then they almost get attacked in a way. To that, I say my advice would be wear what makes you happy, wear what you think you look good in and you feel confident in, because to me, no matter where I'm going, if I like the way I look and I'm satisfied, like I could just have a great day, even if I'm just going to the supermarket. There are studies that show if you believe that you look good, then you feel good and it radiates from the inside out. But in terms of buying clothes to fit in, I think that it's a waste of money because you really should be buying the things that you want, and also who cares, because no one is going to remember that you wore something that was maybe a different gray than the gray that everybody else wears in their Nike Blazers or whatever it is. No one's going to remember that in a week or even an hour. You know what I'm saying? So I think standing out can actually bring you a lot of good attention.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, wear what makes you feel confident, not
Absolutely.
what everybody else feels confident in.
Absolutely.
When your friend group is having drama and then some of you aren't talking to each other, what should you try to do?
So if you're in a position where you want to mediate the situation and there's tension, and let's say everyone's talking about it, well, your friend group is talking about it like between each period and tensions are high, right? I would say go to the person in the friend group that you trust the most, to be honest with you and to tell you what's going on, kind of get their take on things. And if it were me, I would want to talk to everybody separately and kind of get their take on things. And it depends, I guess, how many people are in the friend group, because this is easier said than done, especially if it's, 3 or 4 people. If it starts to get 5, 6, 7, 8 people, it's getting a little tricky, right? You might not want to be that mediator. So in that situation, I would say fall back. And if people come to you, you just be truthful. There is no taking sides. You are your own person. You have your own stand, your own take. You don't have to agree with anyone or take anybody's side. You can just decide on your own. And sometimes that can take a few days. I think something in middle school is that people rush a lot with the drama. They want to know right away what's going on, what people think about this, X, Y, and Z. But human nature, we need time for things to settle in our brain so that we can respond in a way that's true to ourselves.
Yes. Should you try to solve the problems between your friends, or like you said, give it time, let them solve the problems?
I think that if when you go to that person that you trust to tell you what's going on, I think then depending on the situation, it might be up to them to solve the problem, but you could put in a word of advice to them and say, I think that you guys should just make up or talk about this because it wasn't fair that this happened, or maybe that's not what she meant. But while keeping a firm ground on, this is not my issue to deal with, but I'm here to support both of you or all of you because I'm your friend and I want us all to remain friends. And you don't want friend groups to fall out because of silly reasons and because of non-communication. The best thing to do is to communicate with each other. But like I said, it's good if it takes a little bit of time for people to organize their thoughts and think about how they really feel, because then you have a better chance at longevity in that friend group.
Yeah, problems don't solve on their own. They
No,
they take time.
absolutely
Totally
not. And
yeah.
communication is huge. Communication is huge. And I'm not talking, social media communication. I'm talking real life, in person, face-to-face communication, because that is what has the biggest impact on us.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what should you do if there's a false rumor about you, but it's everybody's talking about it, and you plead like it's not true, but what should you do?
So that's a stressful situation, definitely. And it's hard to ignore that when you're in school and you think people are looking at you all the time. I would say if it were me, I would honestly prep myself and be like, okay, this rumor is going around about me, but I know it's not true. Those close to me know it's not true, or hopefully they will realize. But as long as you have at least one person who you trust, who knows, you can lean on them and they will understand. And like I said, people forget about these things so fast. You can't stop a rumor. They spread like wildfire once they begin. We know this. So it's impossible to ignore it. So you got to prep yourself and be like, this did not happen. It's not true. And kind of just talk to yourself in that way. It's important, I think, to talk to yourself and reassure yourself. And even if you don't have that one person to lean on, you have your own being. So that takes a lot of strength. But like I said, people forget so often. Think about celebrities and all of these things. The most famous people ever. There are rumors spread about them. And we forget. We forget pretty quickly, don't we?
Yeah. And, having that person to lean on to, that actually brings us to our next question.
What if there's a rumor about your friend?
So if there is a rumor about your friend, so I would say I would do my best to stop that rumor. If I hear people talking about it. I definitely would feel responsible to say that's not true and kind of just put an end to it. And if they keep going and saying things, it's okay to defend them for a little bit. But if the situation gets out of hand, you just ignore it. And then from that point on, you should stand up for your friends because you would want them to do the same for you. So if you're listening to it, if you're hearing it and you're not saying anything, you're kind of allowing it to happen. You know what I mean? So even though you can't stop every single person from talking about it, if you're right there, you can at least say, hey, I'm friends with them. Don't talk about them like this. And now something hopefully will click. Like, okay, this is another person. We don't want someone to be feeling like this.
Yeah, stand up for your friends.
Stand up for your
That
friends.
is totally right.
Absolutely.
Be the one friend they trust.
Be the one friend that they trust. And even if you're just standing alone, you know, you have each other. You're not standing alone. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. I think a lot of people are afraid to stand up to their friends if they don't have someone else around them that they can lean on and say they're listening to something that makes them uncomfortable and it's about their friends. But it's okay to say, can you stop talking about so-and-so because that's not true. And it's making me feel weird right now that I'm listening to this because I'm friends with her. Period, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I know this might be awkward for some people, but and I'm just talking in general, you know, because we're here to help, like, the girls who listen to this, and everybody has a wide range of problems, even if we can't
It's an advice podcast.
But we wanted to just ask, like, what advice would you give people who, like, are in relationships?
I would give similar advice to people in relationships as I gave for the close friendships, that you really need to be honest, not just with another person, but also with yourself. And the biggest thing I would say is to not submit to peer pressure around you. So if your friends are saying you should do this, you should do that, you should not be with them, you should be with them. And if their friends are doing the same thing, all of that is what we call noise. It's all very distracting. It takes away from what a relationship is actually supposed to be, which begins as a companionship. You know, the person you're in a relationship with should be your friends. And ultimately, they should be your best friends. That's someone who you want to trust to stand up for you and vice versa. So I would say, you know, at your age, the most important thing is definitely to be honest, to not give in to peer pressure from those around you, and to make sure that what you're trying to create is something genuine that ultimately should be a friendship over everything.
Yeah, friendship over everything, too. That is a good point. You know, it is similar.
Because you need respect. You want the person you're in a relationship with to respect you, and that's what happens with friendships too. You want them to respect you. You want them to be able to comfort you, to know who you really are. Mm-hmm. You know, so those are qualities you look for in both a partner and in friends.
Yeah, definitely, like, peer pressure too. That's a big one. Like,
absolutely, I hear about that so much in middle school.
You know, and a lot of, like, drama, rumors start because of peer pressure.
Absolutely. But you always have a voice, even just one person, you have a voice. And a lot of the time, people might not expect it. People can just think that they can go on talking about something, but it'll take them by surprise, you know, if someone were to say, hey, stop talking about this. It's not okay.
So our last question for you, Miss Stein, is...
do you have any advice for girls going into high school?
Of course. So I actually just started substituting at the high school a few months ago. So I had the pleasure of seeing the 8th grade girls from last year as freshmen this year. And it's really nice seeing them adjusting into high school. And after talking with them, and after comparing my own experience, I would say my advice going into high school is take it slow. You know, it's a transition, and it's a pretty big transition in a lot of ways, academically and socially. But in reality, you are still you. You've built who you are over the last 13, 14 years, and now you're just going into a higher school. So, and then after that, you will continue to grow. I would say taking it slow is very important because you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. You don't want to grow up too fast. You want to know the opportunities that are in front of you, and you want to be able to enjoy it. And also with going into high school, there is significantly, I think, from what I've seen, a lot more work that needs to be done after school and in school. So taking it slow is just another way to benefit that process. Because again, with the agenda, remember we talked about the agenda and the reminders. If you stay on top of all of that, you'll be able to take advantage of the things that are just genuinely fun to you. You won't be like, oh, I just have these essays to write and these tests to do and all these things. I can't hang out with my friends. And then say you do hang out with your friends, and you like start to hang out maybe with different people because you don't have enough time to see your real friends. It's all things that can be controlled when you take things slowly. So I would say that would be my best advice to you girls as almost high school freshmen.
It is organization, having to get everything together again. That is just change and growth, like you said.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people wanting to rush to grow up. I don't think that that's the way to go. Take it slow. You have 4 entire years that you'll be in high school. You want to learn everything that you can in there.
Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Ava. Thank you, Zara. And thank you, Mr. Heit. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
I remember, you gave me and other girls so much advice. I was so excited when we were doing this podcast. I was like, I know the perfect person that I want to interview.
And I love doing it. And you girls can always come to me with advice. And I'd be honored to be on this podcast anytime in the future. So thank you so much.
Okay, so where can you find us?
Please send us questions or any topics that you want us to discuss through the link for a Google form in our show notes, and we'll answer them on the show.
Information about this show can be found at Twitter and Instagram with the name @Herricks Studios.
You can find this podcast on your favorite app by searching for Herricks Studios.
If you would like to leave us a review, please do so on Apple Podcasts, and we might read on the show.
This podcast is a production of Herricks Studios with Mr. Heit and the Content Creation Foundation's 8th grade elective.
The views and opinions expressed in these recordings do not necessarily reflect the views or position of Herricks School District.
I think we are just about out of time on this episode, and that's going to do it for me, Ava, and Miss Stein.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.